The women's basketball team continues their great run.
And the football team heads into Division III tournament.
All that and a whole lot more coming up on All Access.
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of All Access. I'm Maria Brasco.
And I'm Pete Narado, filling in again this week for Chris Sharnagle. That is besides the point, though. We have a lot to cover, so Maria, lead us off.
The Rowan football team traveled to Baltimore, Maryland on Saturday, November 22nd for the first round of the NCAA Division III Football Championship Tournament. It was a close game, but Johns Hopkins proved to be too big of an opponent as Rowan went on to lose 24-16. With the loss, Rowan's season ends with an overall record of 7-4. Defensive lineman Chris Alvarez, cornerback Jared Sanchez, and linebacker Darren Dungy each put together 9 tackles. Wide receiver Warren Oliver made a 10-yard touchdown reception with 51 seconds left in the fourth quarter, but it was too little and too late. Rowan had a good season, and congratulations to the team on a successful season.
On Saturday, November 22nd, the Rowan's men's cross-country team traveled to Mason, Ohio to compete in the NCAA Division III Championship. As always, senior John Sunig stole the show as he competed amongst 280 runners and had a time of 26 minutes and 26 seconds on the 8K course. His finish was 110th place. He was the only student athlete from the New Jersey Athletic Conference to qualify for the NCAA Championships. This was his third straight all-regional selection.
The Rowan University men's swimming and diving team earned a 172-73 victory over Pace University Saturday afternoon. John Tepper had a first-place performance in the 500 and 1,000 freestyles. Paul Long won the 200 free, and Colin Fisher was the winner in the 100 backstroke. Brian Swantango took first place in the 100 breaststroke, followed by prof swimmers Tyler Coe and Patrick Myers, who came in second and third place. The team remains undefeated with a record of 7-0.
The Rowan University women's swim team won 149-107 over Swarthmore College on Saturday. Olivia Wachitwawicz was the winner in the 200 freestyle, excuse myself if I mispronounced that, and the 200 breaststroke and 400 individual medley. Victoria Grimsgard came in first in the 50 and 100 free. Olivia Graham took first place in the 1,000 freestyle. Ricky Burke swam a winning time of 2:20.75 in the 200 butterfly. The Profs improved to a record of 6-1.
The Rowan University's women's basketball team defeated Ramapo College 81-56 in the NJAC Conference opener Saturday, November 22nd. The Profs remain undefeated with a 4-0 record. It was the first loss on the season for the 3-1 Roadrunners. Rowan spread the love as 11 players scored and 4 had double-digit points. Guard Valerie Garofalo contributed with 12 points. Guards Anissa Sanchez, Bria Hill, and Caitlin Solstrom followed with 11 points apiece. Hill also grabbed 6 rebounds.
The Profs entered the Thanksgiving break with their perfect record intact, improving to 5-0 after defeating Stockton 69-59 in an NJAC matchup last Tuesday. This is the girls' best start since the 2004-05 season. The Profs found themselves in an early 7-2 deficit, but went on to a commanding 18-2 run, pulling ahead by 11. They would go into the break leading 39-28. Stockton burst out the gates in the second half with a 14-2 spurt to regain the lead for the first time since early in the first half, going on top 42-41. The Profs answered with a 9-point run of their own, going up 50-44, and cruised for the rest of the way en route to the victory. Ashanti Bishop and Summer Crilly were spark plugs off the bench, combining for 23 points. Crilly did much of her damage behind the arc, going 3 for 4, while Bishop led the team with 12 points. Kate Matthews was effective in the paint, pulling down 10 boards and blocking 3 shots.
The girls remain undefeated, improving to 6-0 after toppling Rutgers-Camden 86-65 Wednesday night in a conference game. Trailing 18-12 early in the game, the Profs went on to a 14-0 run to move on to a top 26-18 and finish up the half 38-30. After the break, the Scarlet Raptors never got closer than within 6 points, and the Profs put them away for good with a 20-6 outburst about midway through the second half. Team play was key to the win, as 7 Profs finished with at least 9 points. Alyssa Sanchez led the starters with 13 points, and Summer Crilly chipped in 13 of her own off the pine. Tanaya Lewis had a double-double for the Scarlet Raptors with 13 points and 17 on board. Rowan shot efficiently from the floor at over 46%, including 42.1% from deep, and the girls held Camden just to shooting at 39.1% and forced the Scarlet Raptors into 33 turnovers. The Profs traveled to Jersey City University for another NJAC matchup this Saturday at 2 p.m.
Now for this week's insight into the world of pro sports, we hand it over to Cody Decker with this week's Pro Talk.
Thank you, Pete. Let's take a look at what's going on in the world of pro sports. We will start out in the NBA with the state of the Philadelphia 76ers. After losing their first 17 games of the season, the Sixers traveled to Minnesota Wednesday night to take on the Timberwolves. Two teams struggling to get anything going this season, but the winless Sixers had something hanging above their heads. A loss to the T-Wolves would tie the NBA record for the worst starting record in a season, with the 2009-2010 Nets at 0-18. However, the T-Wolves were embarrassed by giving the Sixers their first win by a score of 85-77. Now, with the quarter mark approaching, people could probably predict how many wins the Sixers will get this season. But let me throw some numbers out there for you. The 3 teams in NBA history that have lost at least the first 17 games of their seasons have combined for a 168 win percentage, winning 9, 12, and 15 games respectively. So it's pretty safe to assume that the Sixers will have between 9 and 15 wins come season's end. I'm not giving up on the Sixers here, but the problem I have is that their ownership has a huge amount of money put into a successful franchise that has recently been far from that. Let alone, if you recall one of my former Pro Talk segments, Eric Bledsoe made the bold statement that the Kentucky Wildcats could beat the Sixers in a 7-game series. Does not sound like a franchise of hope for the future, which the owners are waiting for. As young and as talented as the Sixers may be, they cannot score the amount of points it takes to win games in this league, averaging 91 a game, the lowest in the league. And recently it has been the older, veteran-stacked teams that find themselves in the playoffs come April. We will see if the Sixers can pull off a miracle turnaround as the season progresses. And to Major League Baseball we go, where the offseason is in full swing and the hot stove has heated up, with players electing to become free agents and contracts are being signed. With that being said, there is already a team that has made its presence known by signing 2 big names and investing a ton of money in them. The Boston Red Sox first signed shortstop Hanley Ramirez to a 4-year, $88 million deal with a 5th-year player option for another $22 million. He had a qualifying offer to re-sign with the Los Angeles Dodgers, but chose to test the free agent market. And now the former All-Star finds a new home and a new league in Beantown. Joining him will be the Kung Fu Panda, Pablo Sandoval, signing a 5-year, $95 million contract with a 6th-year player option for another $17 million, about a whopping $200 million for both players. Yet, I believe these moves are definitely worth it. The Boston Red Sox have figured out that Xander Bogaerts is not the shortstop of the future, bringing in Ramirez. Ramirez has struggled defensively, but the Red Sox needed bats to get some offensive production. Now, Ramirez only hit .283 last season with the Dodgers, yet he can still be a great asset to the Red Sox lineup. Now, Sandoval is a bit of a different story, seeing he had a lot of success in San Francisco. The stats in the regular season do not stand out that much, with a .279 batting average, 16 homers, and 73 runs batted in, to name a few from last season. But what about the production from Sandoval in the postseason, hitting .429 with a .467 on-base percentage? Truly a remarkable hitting performance, ending with his 3rd straight World Series championship. So as I see it, these are 2 great additions to a Red Sox team trying to find its way back to the postseason after a disappointing title defense last season. Sandoval and Ramirez are veteran guys whose presence in the locker room is an impact in and of itself. Joining David Ortiz and Dustin Pedroia gives the lineup some more firepower that pitchers will likely come to fear in the 2015 season. Now all Boston needs is the pitching, as they have seemed to indicate interest in bringing back John Lester, who was traded at the trade deadline last season. We will continue to watch and see how the Sox and their team will shape up. That is all for this week's edition of Pro Talk. After the break, Maria and Pete will have more updates and scores. But when we come back, Sandra Hilla sits down with members of the football team. So stay tuned for more All Access.